Welcome back to The Stacks. I am your host, Tracy Thomas. Before we get started with today's episode, which is a book club episode about Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, and our guest is Ross Asdourian, who's the author of The Broken Banana. He's back this week. Before we get into all that, I wanted to remind you about a few things. First, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you listen to us through Apple Podcasts, would you please rate and review the show? The ratings and especially the reviews, they really go a long way to help us to reach new audiences and get seen and heard and all that good stuff. Our most recent review comes from CERZT, and they say, "I love The Stacks. Every episode brings something new. The guests are insightful, and Tracy is an excellent host. She has the unique ability to connect with her guests about any topic under the sun, and by the time each episode is over, I feel like I've learned something new, and I'm inspired to dig a little deeper. I look forward to each episode, and I'm always excited to see what's next for The Stacks. Thanks for opening my eyes to new books, different ways of reading, and helping me explore new topics." First of all, that's a very, very nice review, and I really, really appreciate it. For all of you who have yet to write a review, go ahead and do it. It really goes a long way, and I can't thank you enough, honestly. It's great. Today is July 4th, Independence Day here in America. And for those of you who celebrate the holiday, I just wanted to say it's a kind of a weird year this year, and at least for me personally, and I want to honor the great American authors for their stories, for their bravery in sharing those stories, you know, from people like Toni Morrison and Lawrence Wright to Brian Stevenson or Khalid Hosseini to Lauren Markham or Amy Tan or whatever. Pick your favorite author, Howard Zinn, I don't know, whoever you love. But those people who speak truth to power, who share their unique, interesting, exciting stories or the stories of other people, to all of the authors, I want to say thank you for your stories. Thank you for teaching us. Thank you for leading the way. I also want to say to all of you readers, lovers of books, keep reading, keep growing, keep learning, keep being compassionate, keep speaking truth to power, keep connecting with other people. It's honestly the only way we move forward. It's the only way for true freedom. So with that being said, for those of you who celebrate, happy 4th of July. For those of you who don't, happy Wednesday. It's always a holiday here at The Stack. So celebrate whatever you celebrate today. Do a little dance. Another thing that I celebrate is Patreon. Patreon is a website that allows you, the listener, to contribute to whatever show you love. In this case, I'm hoping it's The Stacks. The way it works is that you can become a member of The Stacks Pack by going to patreon.com/The Stacks and contributing to this show. We have awesome perks that we offer to our Stacks Pack members. For example, we just announced the 2 upcoming guests for our next 2 sets of episodes on the Stacks Patreon page. And if you're interested in kind of getting a little insider information and knowing what's coming down the pipeline and all that kind of stuff, you can find that there on the Patreon page. Also, for anybody who is, wants to hear their name read on the air, we do that here too. So without further ado, our most recent Stacks Pack member is Shelly Casey. So thank you, Shelly, and thank you to everyone who is a Stacks Pack member. And also thank you to the rest of you who aren't necessarily in the Stacks Pack yet, but who've spread the word and told people about the show. It goes a long way. I could cry. I've been so touched by the response from all of you. So thank you so much. Keep spreading the word. Keep showing people how cool we are, how nerdy we are. It's cool to be nerdy. Somebody told me that the other day. I was like, I know. I'm already aware of that. Okay. One more little housekeeping thing. Just so that you know, we're announcing our upcoming books, and we have been announcing our upcoming books on our Instagram page and on our website and Twitter and all that. And you can find links to all of those places, our website, our Twitter, our Facebook, etc., down in the show notes in case you weren't sure where to find us. And then just a reminder, our next 4 upcoming books are Reincarnation Blues on July 18th, Year of Yes on August 1st, Between the World and Me on August 15th, and The Mars Room on August 29th. Now I'm really done. No more housekeeping. Let's do it. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, as discussed with our guest, Ross Asdourian. I hope y'all enjoy. All right, we are back with our guest, Ross Asdourian. If you didn't hear from Ross last week, you should go back and listen to last week's episode. Ross is a comedian. He is a producer. He is also a brand new author, and he wrote a book called Broken Banana, which we talked about last week. But this week, we're talking about the book, The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. Ross, thanks for coming back this week.
Absolutely. So lovely to be here again.
We're excited to have you. So let's just dive in. What did you think of this book?
I have to tell you that my initial thought with the book was that I was happy that I read it. I think a lot of books, in this realm that every kind of buddy has had an opinion on or has read it, it almost feels like you've heard about it so much that reading it feels a bit redundant. But I enjoyed reading it and getting into the examples. It's super thorough, makes its case statement and then gives you very both scientific and real life examples that back it up and are easy to relate to.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the book it's kind of falls in line with books like Predictably Irrational or like those Malcolm Gladwell books. But what I liked about this book is it's a little bit more straightforward. Like he's giving us examples, he's giving us case studies, and then he's also just telling us how habits work, which I think is really refreshing because sometimes I think authors they're like, I got to make a whole point. This was like, no, it's pretty basic. It's pretty straightforward. This is a habit. So I like that. So, let's dive in. The way that habits work, according to Charles Duhigg, is that they are something that our bodies and our brains do kind of to save energy. So there's such a thing as a habit loop. And while you're doing the habit loop, your brain actually kind of powers down. So for example, the habit loop is this. You have a cue, you have a routine, and you have a reward. So that's the loop. And it can be as quick and easy as like when you walk in the house and you turn the light on and then you do your burglar alarm. And like that could be your habit loop because you kind of always do it the same way. And your cue is that the door opens, and your habit is that you flip the lights, then you do the burglar alarm, and then you close and lock the door. And then your reward is I'm home, I'm safe. It can be something that simple.
Right.
And it's just something that we do. And so that's kind of like the basis of the book. And then Duhigg digs deeper and deeper and explains like how you change a habit and how you have certain habits that make bigger habits. And he kind of leads off by talking about this woman who was like, for all non-judgy intents and purposes, a hot mess. She was like, she drank a lot. She never exercised. She was overweight. She was late to work. She never slept. Like she was a mess. And she decided that she was going to change her life by starting to run every day. And then they go back to her and she's like, I weigh 10 pounds and I only eat celery sticks and I've never been late a day in my life and I get 8 hours of sleep and I've ran 6 marathons and my doctors are amazed. And it's like, change your habits. Which is kind of where we start the book.
and yeah, it's one of those, it's obviously super simple, but again, opens it up. It's a bit of a crescendo, right? Because, the without obviously giving anything away, because it's, the joy is in reading it. But, like you said, it's the 3 steps, each habit, 3 steps, puts it in a circle, cue, routine, reward. And it starts with, part 1 is breaking down the cue. And the idea is that you can change any 3 of these parts, and they have different pros and cons into changing those. And then each chapter goes and says, okay, here's what happens when you change the cue. Here's what happens when you change the routine. Here's what happens when you change the reward. And basically toying with the brain. And a lot of these types of books are about brain, hacking the brain and hacking life, being more efficient, getting control of your own capabilities. And that's kind of cool, right? I know that I am not alone when I say I definitely get stuck in ruts and I feel like, how do I get out of it? I know that I'm in it, whether it's weight or work, or whatever it is, just that feeling that, once you kind of get going, then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I working out and now I'm eating healthy. And it's just like this kind of rolling ball of these habits and knowing that it's such a simple way of breaking down what we're doing.
Right.
I thought that was really interesting. Not only on simple stuff like that, but, and I think we should talk I really loved the bit about Eugene, and basically this is more on like an actual disease point of view, and how our bodies and our brains are working without us even being conscious of it. And that's, I think, a whole separate point.
Right. Well, I don't know if I ever told you this story. It happened a few weeks ago, so maybe not. But your brain, like I said, kind of shuts off when you do this. And like your body is almost in autopilot. And I had read the book and I was like, oh, he gives an example in the book about backing out of your driveway. And I was like, oh, I'm going to pay attention while I back out of my driveway today because I just read this page in this book. And so I back out and then I pause, which was a total break in my routine. Like I never pause. I start backing up and I go and I pause and then I backed into somebody's car. Because I had fucked with my routine. I know. Isn't that crazy? Like, I've never, ever hit anything backing it up ever in my entire life. And then the one day that I'm like, oh, I'm really going to pay attention to how I do this, I run into somebody's car.
Of course.
Of course. Because, like, your body's like, don't get in my way, Tracy. Like, I already have this handled. You're an idiot. Like, I figured this out without you. But, like, and
that's
so,
the thing, is
yeah.
Well, the second you become aware of something, all of a sudden you're thinking about it, and you're usually operating better without thinking about it.
Right.
I mean, that is true even as we're kids, and we're not even aware of either the dangers that we're in, or, you see kids skiing on a mountain, and if you've been skiing since you were 2, versus you starting when you're 28, your brain isn't as aware when you're younger about people tumbling down a mountain and breaking bones, and it just doesn't register with you because it's so automatic.
Right.
I mean, literally, like everyone says, it's just like riding a bike. You don't think about riding a bike. You just do it.
Right.
So the second you become conscious, now every time you're parking, you're gonna be thinking about it, and you're gonna have that sense memory of being like, oh yeah, and that the ding and the blah blah blah.
Now I can't back out of my driveway, like actually get anxiety about it, which is great, which is like not way to start your day. But what you were talking about is like when you change the one habit and then the other habits change. Duhigg calls that a keystone habit. And like, apparently that's a really important thing when you want to make changes to your habits, is that you identify whatever that keystone habit is. And then that's the one that has trickle down. So like if you change, like you commit to going to bed and getting 8 hours of sleep, you're going to see that habit changes. Like you're more productive at work. You're not so tired at 3:00. You can go for a run, like all this other stuff. So do you have any habits that you want to change about your life? We're going to get personal.
I mean, look, I mean, this kind of, quite honestly, just parlays into writing. Like as a writer, you're always trying to fight the habits of procrastination. And, I mean, that's the hardest thing. Anyone who is an entrepreneur or a creator, you're fighting yourself because there's no one on your back to do something at a certain time, or by a certain date. So you have to make these arbitrary deadlines. So the habits that you form to create or whatever it is are absolutely vital to getting anything done. Because if you don't have these habits in place, which are waking up at a certain time and blah, blah, then you just don't get anything done. So I think for me, the habits that I'm always trying to form are those.
Totally. Well,
I mean,
there's a
what
book.
are your habits?
There's a book called The Creative Habit, and it's by Twyla Tharp, and it's all about. She's a choreographer, and it's all about like what she does in order to make sure that she has a routine, so that her brain is able to be free enough for her to create. So like if it's like you wake up and you meditate in the morning, and then you go drink your coffee outside, and then when you come back inside, it's like you've entered your office, right? Like if you're like a stay-at-home worker, and like stuff like that, where she's talking about how can I get habits, like structure around me so that I can be creative, because my work is so hectic. It's not like every day she comes in and she works on a factory line where it's like your day is so the same. So that's kind of like, she changed her habits and she created habits so that she could create. I am working.
It's also, I think, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you asked me what I was going to do, but my habit that I want to change is that I would like to, well, I've been working on it ever since I read the book. I'm trying not to use my phone in bed.
Ooh.
It's hard because
it's really hard.
It's really hard because I wind down that way weirdly, like caring about other people. So what I've been trying to do is The rule is just when I get in bed, no more phone. So I have to set my alarm outside of my bed. I have to send my like last minute text about the basketball game to my brother outside of bed. And my husband makes fun of me because I'll stand like in my pajamas right next to the bed holding my phone and like doing squats, but I won't get in the bed. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, there's no phone in bed.
There's no phones in bed.
It hasn't quite stuck.
Rules are rules.
But
but once you have done that,
then I read more in bed.
Weeks,
well, right. The reward is that I'm not on my phone and I can wind down quicker because the light makes me want to stay up.
Well, and look, the reward is eventually going to be your body's going to be thanking you because you're going to be getting better sleep.
Right.
You're going to get out of bed earlier. You're not going to linger. But it's still really hard, to establish that habit.
Right.
And, that's, I think the book kind of dives into that as well, which, I kind of want to talk about the Alcoholics Anonymous example, which I thought was super powerful. And we can kind of chat a little about better willpower and the role of religion.
Sure.
I think in these habits, I thought it was super interesting.
Yeah.
Because that was a part of the book that wasn't really scientific, but consistent findings.
Right. Because so in the Alcoholics Anonymous example, he talks a lot about how it's not enough, even though he has this great like habit loop, it's not enough just to identify what you want your reward to be. You also need to have a belief in your ability or the ability to complete the task. So if you're an alcoholic and you're trying to quit and you give it up and then something terrible happens and you don't have that bigger belief in your ability or your ability to weather this storm, often that's when people will relapse and start drinking again. And so what he talks about is how Alcoholics Anonymous created the habit of a higher being so that it took the pressure off the individual. And you go into those meetings and you talk to other people who are doing the work, who have changed their habits. And you can see this guy was an alcoholic. His wife died. He went to his, deepest despair. He got sober. And then when his mother died, he stayed sober because of this community. And so that that is creating a habit, a group habit, which he says kind of like a group habit is really called a routine, but whatever. That seems pretty technical to me. I don't know the difference.
Yeah.
I'm not quite there yet. But the belief in something bigger, whether it, he also uses the same example for Tony Dungy's changing of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he says that the team didn't quite believe in what Tony Dungy was trying to have them do, but it wasn't until they came together and as a team were like, no, we can do this. And they had that belief in themselves that they were able to win the Super Bowl.
Right. And again, it's just going back to I think it was in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was talking about replacing the routine of drinking with just engaging socially.
Yeah.
So the reward is, that you're a part of this community or whatever. And the alcoholics are drinking not because of the physical feeling of intoxication, but because they wanted the emotional relief of being around company and escaping problems.
Sure.
So it's just replacing, the routine with, instead of drinking, you're going to do something at a meeting that's still socially engaging.
Well, right.
So you're still getting that payoff of escaping from your everyday problems or having a distraction. But instead of going and drinking, you're going and engaging in a social circle. So, again, it's these replacements in one of those three that this keeps harping on. And again, I just found it super interesting because even as you and I here talk about it, we go, the three things. Sure, you replace one, replace the other. But if you were to ask me, okay, what does it look like if you replace the cue versus the routine versus the reward, and what are the differences? I'd be like, this should be a simple question. You should answer, but I can't really tell you in my own daily habits. Yeah, of course. If I start breaking it down, okay, I wake up, so my cue is to, drink orange juice, and the reward is that I have a sweet taste in my mouth. and I feel like
Right.
I'm alive again.
It's like
you know,
so cerebral to think about how you do what you do.
Yeah, but that's the title, the subtitle of the book is
Right.
why do we do what we do in business and life?
Right. No, of course.
Valentine's Day is upon us, and I've got love on the brain. Love for books, duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to traceythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks.
And like what you were saying about Alcoholics Anonymous, and it never, I mean, maybe even says it in the book, but it's just clicking in my head right now. A lot of people drink to become social. Right? Like they feel awkward. You go out on a first date and it's like, oh, I want to drink because not just alcoholics, just people in general. Like, it's like, I want to drink because like, this is going to be weird, or like, oh, I have to have some cider at Christmas because like Uncle Billy, you know what I mean? And so I feel like it's kind of genius that AA was able to be like, let's substitute the social part, because that's the part that you, even if you're not drinking, like if you're not drinking, but you're alone not drinking, if you're doing it on your own, you might not have people that you can talk to who are unjudgmental, who are like, it's cool. We're all awkward. Like, we're all sober. It's no big deal. Let's still be friends, you know?
Right.
And I don't know, I just like light bulb moment for me.
That's actually, super light bulb.
Yeah. But so the thing that I found weird, a little bit weird for me, a little bit like, is when he gives a few different examples of people and groups and religion, and every time in the book it's always Christianity. And I wonder if that was like a choice, or if that's just like, you know, like kind of like a bias that is held here in America. You know, I don't know, because like it's not like Christianity is the only religion, and it's not like there aren't plenty of other people, especially around the world. I mean, Islam is the number one religion in the world. So it's not like these studies couldn't have been done. That was the one thing where I was kind of like, what about like the Buddhists?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it's probably the most accessible to test in this country. And probably to a certain extent, also the readership of people in this country are going to resonate with that a little more and be able to relate to it.
I don't know.
I do wonder what this looks like, or how religion and different religions, like what's the level of influence on our habits? You know, if certain religions that dictate more like habitual just practice,
sure,
also bleeds
like
into
prayer, like 5 times a day, or something.
Prayer every day at
or
this
the
time,
Sabbath.
this time. No eating this thing at this, you know, and I wonder how that actually plays into whether those, you almost like get your structure from there. I mean, you know, it's the same in the military, right? Like people in the military, they have these habits that they don't lose, and that can be as simple as making the bed.
Right.
You know, these aren't like we're not talking like crazy, insane stuff. Like, I think that I think that either if you're raised with a routine and a habit, you don't know how to exist without it.
Sure.
And if you don't have it, you almost have to struggle to find a rhythm that works for you, because we crave habit, we crave routine. We act well in familiarity, and we can strengthen, if we do something over and over again. You talk about Malcolm Gladwell and 10,000 hours. Like, it's good to be repetitive in a certain sense to work that muscle, I think. I mean, I know that I've struggled with that as someone who didn't really grow up with a lot of routine, having to find it, and struggle, with even knowing how to figure out if what I'm doing is the right way to be doing the thing that I'm doing.
Right.
And, it goes into, even here with, and it talks about like the corporate, where it was like it was in the Keystone Habits in part 2 of the book. It was like habits of successful organizations.
Right.
And, talks about Starbucks, and talks about, there was like an aluminum company that had they wanted to basically be the safest company in the country. And there's a part of this that is testing, right? It's, you try something and you look back, is this working? There is that feedback loop.
Right.
And, obviously it's a lot easier to see on a company that has goals that can be measured monetarily. With the safety thing, it was, the employee injuries that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it was, the Q was the employee injury, the routine was the president. They had a new president, and you had to report the problem within 24 hours to also say how they were going to never let it happen again.
Right.
And the reward was that they would just be given positive remarks.
Well,
and recognition.
yeah, like that was how you could move up in the company.
Right.
Like if you had a lot of injuries or whatever, you weren't doing a good job, basically, so you weren't going to be rewarded for performance, essentially.
Yeah, and I just think that's a super interesting thing that we even have to look at with ourselves. And, again, obviously, selfishly always bringing it back to us, saying, well, how can I use this in my life? How can I, take these properties in this company, and what's the transitive property into my life? You do kind of look at some of these things that we want, whether it's safety or love or weight loss or whatever it is. There's going to be that loop, and I think identifying that, and not only identifying it, but being able to look and see after a while if it's effective. If I'm waking up at 5 every morning because I want to go run and that's going to help me lose weight, I think, and then after a couple weeks I'm really miserable and I'm grumpy and well, then that's not the right move. That's not the right one.
Like, maybe you need to run
do that.
Yeah, at a different time.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he talks about that in the appendix too. Like, the whole appendix of the book, or the afterword or whatever, is like how to actually change a habit. And he talks about like testing out different routines, or testing out to see what the reward is. Is it the reward that you want to lose weight and the routines that you're running in the morning, but what you're really seeing is that you're actually gaining weight because you're eating like 8 cookies at 3 because you're starving at 3 because you've been up so long.
Exactly.
So yeah, he definitely talks about like how can we adjust and like reevaluate and come back to these things. And yeah, the thing that I really liked about the book is that it brings up so many questions, like whether it be how do we do this and how do we sort through this, and that's so interesting. I've never thought about safety in a company as being a bottom line issue, all those kind of questions where you're like, wow, thank you for thinking about this for me, Charles, because I just was putting aluminum foil on my potatoes, like I wasn't paying attention.
Yep.
But the thing in the Starbucks section, which I thought was really interesting, was about willpower. And he talked about how, so I guess kind of to backtrack, there's a study that Stanford did. It's this Stanford marshmallow study. You've probably heard of it. Basically, they sat down like little preschoolers and they said, up there's like a plate of marshmallows in front of them, and it said, if you can eat this marshmallow now, but if you wait 10 minutes when I come back, you can have 2 marshmallows. And so they did this whole study, and then they followed the kids, and it was like the kids who ate the marshmallows were ended up being less successful, like down the road when they were graduating from high school. They got into worse colleges, or they didn't graduate, versus the kids who waited. And so people all thought that this meant that you were born with willpower. But in this book, Duhigg kind of unpacks it, and it turns out that willpower is a habit, and you can like flex your willpower muscle, and you can get stronger at willpower. And so kind of to tie it into the getting up early to run thing and then ending up gaining weight because you're eating cookies at 3, part of willpower is it can get fatigued. And so he says like people who have jobs where they like kind of like tedious jobs where they have to flex willpower to keep going throughout the day are more likely to have affairs, extramarital affairs, because they can't resist temptation as well outside of work, which is like mind blowing. Like, what? Like, what do you mean? That's crazy. But then you start to think about it and you're like, sure, well, if willpower is a muscle, muscles get fatigued.
Yeah. And the way that they related it to Starbucks was they're saying that the key to developing willpower is to basically be able to predict the biggest pain points.
Right.
And have a plan beforehand so you know how to work through them.
Right. So like knowing go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, so basically when you define the routines for the employees, you already have those rough patches built in and trained for. And, whether it's listening to the customer or, hearing the complaint, there are the certain things that they built into the training. There was like some sort of an acronym for it. It was I think it was like the latte method or something. And they had it was their training.
Yeah, it was like listen, analyze, like.
Yeah. This is classic like corporate training. I can like see the video now.
Where I work, we had one of those. It was I can't remember, but it was like, thank them and smile, like apologize, listen. Yep. Oh no, acknowledge. Yep. That's what wish I could remember the acronym. Yes. I used to know it, but I don't have
It'll come to you at the right time.
It will come to me.
Your training will serve you.
It will come to me when I need it the most, when someone is making me stressed out. But actually, my other job besides this is I teach fitness classes, which but listeners, you might not. I teach indoor cycling. And after reading this book, it's really changed the way that I coach my riders, because it does take a lot of willpower and commitment to doing the same thing over and over, right? Like you're riding a bike that goes nowhere. And so I've really started to change my communication with my riders around, that you have to work at it every day, and like that every pedal stroke is actually a choice, and like reinforce, like now that I understand a little bit better how people get stronger and how people work harder and how you change your habits. And a lot of people that ride with me are changing, they're trying to change their life. They're trying to get in shape. The doctor told them, their heart's not healthy or whatever it is. And like, that's a really big block for a lot of people. So I've started, thanks to this book, like trying to use language that is encouraging of habit, but also aware of the monotony of, getting in shape. Like it's not an easy thing to do. Nope. So that's a habit, I guess, that I've changed. It's not really a habit I've changed. It's just something that I'm changing about myself in order to help other people who are on a totally different journey. Because in my line of work, you see people who are on all sorts of journeys. But yeah, it's kind of a non sequitur, but for me, it meant something. I mean, look, we always, we take this text and we interpret it the way that we want to. I mean, and that's kind of the beauty of something like this is when you read it, when I read it, we're reading the same words, but we see a different reflection of how it relates in our life. And that helps us understand all the different examples and helps us be able to be like, oh, this is how I can utilize this. Which, I mean, look, you read a book like this to utilize the knowledge that it's giving you and say, okay, how does this make me aware of what I'm already doing? And how does this allow me to be more in control of my life, right? I mean, that's the goal. Right. You read a lot of these, I don't want to call this a self-help book, but it is a knowledge book of how we are working subconsciously without knowing it. Right.
And when we're aware of it, just like anything else in life, once we become aware of, our habits or whatever, if it's either the environment or our health or whatever it is, even if we don't immediately change it, we're going to start thinking about it. And over time, hopefully progress in the right direction to say, hey, what I'm doing isn't healthy right now, either for me or the other people around me. And I'm aware of it now, and I might not change it right now. But over time, maybe I'm going to start seeing the effects of my behavior in the grander scheme of things. So, I think that's the beauty of when we all read this, it's the same thing, but we're getting different things.
Right.
And even in talking to you, I get to hear about what you get out of it, and I get to retune what I got out of it. I mean,
Right,
that's
totally.
kind of the beauty of stuff like this,
Yeah.
Versus, if we're reading a fantasy book, which, is fun, but then we're kind of just on the same journey together. This, we're literally interpreting the same text in really cool and beneficial ways
Right.
that makes it a little more exciting to talk about.
And like drawing connections into our own lives. One of the things that I just like, for me as someone who is really into social movements, I was so interested in the stuff about the Montgomery bus boycott. And they talk about how like Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to not stand up for a white person on the bus. I'm assuming you all know this story, but she wasn't the first person, but she was someone who was in a unique place in her community where she was involved with a lot of different people. She had, some white lawyer friends, and she had church people, and she had people like at her job and all this stuff. So she had a big network of people, and that is what enabled her to be a catalyst, because so many different people, he calls it strong ties, like people that know her, and then weak ties, which are like acquaintances, the ripple effect, 6 Degrees of Rosa Parks. But all of those people were mobilized because she was a catalyst and they felt connected to her. And it made me think a lot about both the Black Lives Matter movements and also the students from Parkland. Because we have this thing now called social media, which sometimes is terrible when like your ex-boyfriend pops up, but is also amazing when you know what I'm talking about, but also is amazing when you have the Arab Spring, people from the Arab Spring communicating to, the youth in America who are doing Black Lives Matter protests about how you need to use milk to protect your eyes if you get sprayed with pepper spray. But like that is weak ties, right? Like,
right.
In such a bigger way than I think, Rosa Parks probably could have ever imagined. I mean, bigger than we could have imagined probably 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
But like that to me, like seeing how this stuff works on a smaller scale, because what happened in the bus rides, go back to that. The bus protest is that the queue was, obviously the protest, and the queue was like, were not riding the bus. And then Martin Luther King and the other leaders instilled in them not only the belief that they could change the system, but also the routine of getting rides from each other, making it accessible. There were all these different
helping
ways.
Friends.
Yeah, exactly.
The routine, like even more basic, was just like the cue is, and this is just in a community, right? Like, especially a well-connected community is, the cue is your friend's in trouble. The routine is you help the friend, and the reward is you get a happiness from helping your friend.
And it gets better.
And that's, and I think that is at its basis when you have a tight community that's formed, and it talks about leaders, obviously, in the book as well. When you have the routine of a social habit, right? So your social habits, as well as we talk about your actual physical habits, but the social habits of friendship kick in, right? When the thing happened with Rosa Parks, and that is the catalyst. And like you said, it was her position in the community that obviously made this bigger, but it was the fact that there was a social habit that was created of this community, that when this happens, you do this.
Right.
When someone's in trouble, you help them, right? And there is a greater good that you are serving.
Right.
So, even like with the accident, you're not actually getting a physical thing, but the social habit and the social reward of being put on a pedestal and feeling good for helping is your reward.
Right.
And that drives the community forward.
Yeah. And I find it to be so cool to see him talk about it on a bigger scale, like in social activism, because I think that that's something that's, not to be too political, but just there's so much going on in the world right now, and it is Independence Day, so why not, get a little political, America. But it's amazing to think like there's so many social movements that are being led by some really young people coming out of some pretty terrible events and deaths and this and that, and that people are understanding how to mobilize through weak ties, right? You see those kids from Parkland and you're like, I don't know those kids, but I know kids like those kids, and I feel obligated to those kids because I wouldn't want the kids from my high school to go through this, right? And so it's like the weak ties are in play, and that's how you can use something, this little tiny habit loop when it comes to waking up earlier, right? Or brushing your teeth, and you can blow it all the way up and see it as like, we're going to change the way that our country interacts with gun laws. Like what? That those two things can be on the same, can come from the same thing, the same idea. Like that's the stuff that I'm like, yo, that's what makes a book like this really special, when Duhigg's able to draw parallels between brushing your teeth and using mouthwash to, you know, social activism on a huge scale. Now, the last little thing that I have one more thing that I want to talk about, and then I'll let you close us out. But the title of this book, The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business. Do you think that the title's good? Do you think it nails it?
Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. I actually really like the subtitle just because it kind of, in life and business, like, it is so simple, but it's kind of fun to identify why we are the way we are. So I think that, you know, it's a really cool act, and I really like the cover too. It's just got this really plain, simple, almost like a cautionary feel to it, but I really like it.
I do too. I actually like the title. I like The Power of Habit because I feel like it's empowering. Like I feel empowered after reading the book, and I'm like, that's right. Like this stuff is really powerful. Like like if it can get you to change something about yourself, like, you know, might not be the biggest thing. You might not be an alcoholic, so you might not have to do that, but like that it could help someone who needed it, like someone who was in a rut, you know, like I think that that's so powerful when books can empower us to make changes. And this book is totally like, that's what this book is about, really. It's like, how can we do a little better, be a little better? Do you have anything else you want to add about this book before we sign off?
You know, look, I would just say that I always like to endorse books, and if someone's looking at it, because they're easy to be like, oh, you know, well, and I've already heard of it. But it really does do a great job of kind of illustrating things. And, you know, like anything else, if you're going to learn it, you kind of have to spend some time with it. And, you know, look, at the end of the day, I walked away saying, okay, I have to set up a routine that gives me fast, positive feedback.
Right.
Like, unless, and if I don't, then I'm not going to stick with it. Right. Like, I need that routine that gives me the positivity, and then I can keep doing it, and then it'll become a habit. But, you know, I kind of have to sit with the book for a little bit to kind of self-identify, like, what am I getting out of that? But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. And, you know, there's I think a lot of these types of books out there, and this one has cut through the clutter for a reason. Yeah,
for sure. I totally agree. This book's awesome. You should definitely pick it up if you haven't yet. If you made it to the end of the podcast and you haven't yet, you probably are interested. So get it. You can use your Audible on that too. And also everything we talked about this week will be in the show notes. So there'll be a link to this book as well. All right. Next week, I'll be back with Lauren Fenella. She's a book lover like all of us. And Ross, thank you so much. You're the best. I'm so glad you're here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
All right. Okay, that does it for us this week at The Stacks. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Ross Asdourian, our guest, for joining us again this week. And also, don't forget, go buy his book. It's called Broken Banana. You can get it on Amazon. Patreon. Our Patreon page is up. Go ahead, get after it, contribute to the show, get special access, be loved by me forever. What else? Oh, rate, review the show, subscribe, follow us on social media. Links to all of those things are right down there in the show notes. Last little thing, next week we will be joined by Lauren Fenella. Some of you are like, who? Well, you might know her better from her Bookstagram handle at Literary Lauren. So Lauren will be with us next week. Send me over your questions for her. Other than that, have an amazing rest of your week, and we will see you in the stacks. Our graphic designer is Robin McCright. Our theme music comes from Tigirgis, and this show was created and produced by me, Tracy Thomas.